You show me what you got. I'll tell you where to put it.
I'm pulling them right now because it feels good.
Oh, I mean, Finnan really is a fucking babe. I mean, the accent.
Welcome back, Pot Coven. Your favorite witches are here to bring you our final installment in our Yule series. Today we have a very special guest, author of Old Mother Frost, which is a pagan children's book, which I'm really excited about reading and learning about. Her name is Jennifer Hartman, and she also runs Pagan Kids on Instagram. So welcome, Jennifer. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, we're stoked to have you here. Because we do our show in 4-episode blocks, and so we try to have the last episode be an interview from someone who, has some expertise in what we were talking about. So we were like, yeah, let's talk about Yule. Let's talk about pagan holidays. And then we were like, oh, who are we going to have on? And when Ella suggested you, it was like, oh, duh, that's going to be amazing. So we're really happy to have you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I've been looking for an excuse to sit down with you for sure.
So why don't you just tell all of our listeners a little bit more about your practices and your background. Give them a little clue as to who you are.
All right. Well, so my name is Jennifer Hartman, and I'm a mother of a little 2-year-old who's kind of the reason for all of this. I grew up very Swedish, and my mom was very pagan herself. She kind of went through this time in her life where she was a little timid to show her practice and her true self. But she always fed me little origin stories, like little pagan origin stories from back home, and just little folklore. So by the time I grew up and I wanted this stuff for my own family and realized none of it existed, I started this whole entire journey into Pagan Kids and writing my own Yuletide children's book so that families can actually have something warm and cozy for the holidays like the rest of the world has for their traditions.
That's so awesome. That's honestly what drew me to your page in general is, I always kind of like look up like other pagan parents because I'm like, I know I'm not the only one out there. I know I'm not the only person like teaching their kids about like fairies and fucking, all these old stories, like literally my daughter puts garlic by her windowsills. Like she has garlic on both sides. She will not sleep without garlic on her windowsills. But yeah, so I was really excited when I found your account, and when I was like started following you, I was like, holy shit. And also someone who knows so much too. Like you're a very reliable source. You're a very like learned person, bringing all this information out for people to digest, So I really think what you're doing is fucking amazing. You are so cool.
Thanks. I didn't realize I was having such a big impact on the community.
Oh, heck yeah, girl. Heck yeah. Yeah. So we are here today to kind of talk about some Yule traditions. So you grew up Swedish. Is there anything like what do you call that? Exclusive to Sweden that you guys that Swedish folk would like practice around this time, or like traditions, stuff like that?
That's kind of hard to say. There are different different layers to all of this. We grew up with little tomtes, but I believe that they're in different parts of Scandinavia as well. And the tomte is just a little creature that lives a little spirit or gnome that lives underneath your floorboards and takes care of the house while you're sleeping. Well, the house and farm animals while you're sleeping. And not all houses have little tomtes. They kind of come with the house, and some people say they're actually ancestral spirits. So they just kind of take care of you. Legends progressed, and they ended up becoming like Yule tomtes or tomtenieces, and those guys bring you gifts around Christmas time, but they're not very sneaky about it. Like they travel around on goats, and you actually see illustrations of gifts being handed to children and families.
Oh,
so that's pretty cool. And those come from the 2nd or 3rd century pre-Christian time. So it's fun to kind of know that and follow that. I don't know if there's any children's books for you on that. There is the Tomte, but it's kind of more of a Christmas book by Astrid Lindgren. And that's fun to dive into, but I've always just grown up with the little legends and folk tales about them.
I love that. That's so cute. Do you feel like you had any of them in your homes?
I think I had some, we definitely had some when I was living in Alberta on a farm.
Mm.
And my mom would constantly say little things about the Tomtas at the home in Ontario. So I've never seen them. You're not supposed to see them though. You're just supposed to leave offerings for them every once in a while so that they're generous to you, or at least
Yeah.
happy to you.
Yeah, I think that's kind of similar to like the Irish leprechauns. Like you're not really supposed to see them too much, but every now and then they'll just be like, "Here's the thing," and you're just supposed to kind of like appreciate them and you know.
Exactly. As for the other traditions I grew up with, I'm not entirely sure what's unique to me because it's what I've always known. I never did Christmas except for Santa. We did Santa as a story, but everything else, it was just what we did. So it was special treats that we baked, it was special music. Uh, yeah, almost everything was very similar to what everybody else celebrates. It's pagan, which which I'm pretty sure is original.
Yeah, it's funny how Christmas is one of those holidays that like takes from so many different traditions and places all around the world. And it's kind of just turned into this big smorgasbord where we just like put everything together and we're like, all right, now here is modern Christmas. It takes from this and that and that and that and that and that. So you can find roots to all of this stuff, which is what we've been playing around with, finding the roots of like, oh, why do we bring evergreens in? Why do we use the colors red and green? And there's like a lot of times there's so many different answers for one thing, which has been fun for us to explore as well. So it's like, yeah, where does the paganism end and modern Christmas begin, really?
Yeah, that's actually really fun. I know every single country in Scandinavia kind of has their own origins and their own stories. A lot of them are very similar, so it's kind of hard to figure out who truly came up with the original thing.
Yeah. Um, so I guess Sweden's technically Scandinavia, right? Pardon my American geography.
Yeah, Sweden would be technically Scandinavian. It's mostly Norway, Sweden, and Germany falls into it as well. The surrounding
Oh.
countries are more Nordic, so a lot of the times I lump them together on my
Hmm.
resource. And I do try my best to educate myself on the other ones outside because Pagan Kids isn't supposed to be all about me. It's supposed to be about all the Norse pagan families.
Hmm.
So I try my hardest to reach out. I do a lot of research into everything just to help educate everybody on everybody's stories. And if I do see something that I am not aware about, I reach out to the experts of that field and I try to interview them and share them on my pages.
How long have you been running Pagan Kids?
I've been running Pagan Kids for about a year or a year and a half now. It kind of came in when I started writing Old Mother Frost. I needed to research things, I needed to share things, and the more I was trying to research, the more I realized this didn't exist and we need these things in our community. I needed these things. So when I found out that there was a resource lacking, I decided that I was going to try to fill it, which is really hard. You have to go
Yes.
through a lot of studies. You have to translate a lot of studies. And then you have to make it as simple to understand as possible so parents and children can enjoy the content.
It's
True. Yeah.
amazing. That sounds like a
It
lot
is.
of work. I mean, not like in a bad way, but just like, yeah, that's a lot to do to
Yeah.
be, the pioneer of like pagan children's books. I know this yours isn't the only one, but like to kind of really be like, no, families need this. This is a time that we celebrate as well. It's been hard with my kids because they're all like Christmas, 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 and I'm like, Christmas is fun, but also fucking Yule, children, Yule. But my
Yeah.
daughter, my 5-year-old, does not buy into Santa at all. She does not. She's like, no. that's bullshit. I was like, okay. So I've tried to explain to her, I'm like, Santa's kind of like a spirit, it's more of the attitude around this year, it's based off of people or spirits from the past. And she's like, whatever, just give me presents.
I feel it.
But they all love the Yule fire. We all love our Yule bonfire, so.
I think there's just a certain feeling that everybody wants for the holidays. It's not necessarily about the spirits or the legends. It's just about the warmth, the coziness, the magical ambiance around you that you're really attracted to.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. It really is.
So I have family lives in Norway, actually. Like my entire life they've lived over there. And my grandma used to send us each a stocking full of gifts. And it reminds me somewhat of an advent calendar. We would have started it like not quite the beginning of December, but like a week or so into it, and it would go through solstice. I was just wondering if maybe there was anything like that your family used to do or that you've researched.
Well, my family, we had little candles on the table, and we'd start at the beginning of December 5th, and we'd light one candle for the first week, then the 2 candles the next week, 3 candles for the next week. And it kind of created a little tall to small effect on the candles as an advent to Christmas. And then by the time the day came, you'd just burn all the candles until there was nothing left. So that was our little countdown to Yule. So in Sweden, Yule has a bunch of different versions. There's the historical heathen one. There's the kind of more new age Yule, which is a mix between the old heathen ways and the new ways. And then there's the Christmas Yule, which is just called Yule to try to bring the whole entire community together.
I would love to know what the differences between those are. I mean, if it's too long of an answer, you can give us the summary. But yeah, like what are the nuances between heathen Yule and this modern Yule and Christmas Yule?
Okay, so that's actually a loaded question, but I'm happy to explain that. Cool. It actually starts around Halloween. We kind of need to understand the importance between Winter's Nights or Vetternacht before we go into Yule so that we know exactly when the old historical Yule takes place. So Winter Nights begins during the harvest moon at the start of winter. It was celebrated with the last harvest feast of the year, very much like Thanksgiving. And this year, Winter Nights was October 31st to November 1st. So today, these dates are called Halloween and All Saints' Day. So knowing when Winter Nights happens is important if you want to know when Yule was originally celebrated. Well, historically, Norse pagans or heathens didn't have months the way we know them today. Instead, they had the phases of the moon to follow. It would be called the lunar calendar. So following the lunar calendar, Yule wouldn't have a set date. Instead, it would be 6 months after Winter's Nights. 6 moons after Winter's Nights. So far we can date Yule back to the 4th century Saxony, which is modern-day Germany. So Yule traditions that are attested in the historical texts, it includes sacrificing animals to the gods and sharing it at a large gathering, and people would toast in honor of their gods and ancestors, feast and celebrate until the food and mead were gone. From there was also a couple of stanzas in the old manuscripts. It was explaining that gifts were exchanged at this time, but stories in gift-giving spirits and goddesses around this time go back to even further. As I mentioned before with the Tantas, it goes back to around the 3rd century. So they're not necessarily considered Norse pagan because they're kind of more cultural folktale from the pre-Christian times. These spirits and goddesses are different depending on the areas, and it really seems like each country has their own version of these legends. So Sweden, as I mentioned, has the Yule Tantas, who ride Yule goats to the homes of children to hand them gifts. Today it's popularized in the Western world as the Christmas gnome, and Germany has Frau, which is what Old Mother Frost is based off of. So going back to the original question, the old historical heathen Yule would have taken place following the lunar calendar and would have been after the winter solstice and after Christmas. And if you really want to try to figure out without just following winter's nights, you'd want to look at the phases of the moon again. You'd look at the winter solstice and you'd wait for the new moon. And then after that new moon, you wait for the full moon. And that's when Yule is. Yule would be celebrated for about 3 days with that sacrifice and the feast and everything. When it comes to the winter solstice, that came about when the heathens themselves kind of changed the dates when they realized that the lunar calendar shortens itself every year by 11 days. So at this point, they'd celebrate Yule. This would usually be around December 21st. And then when King Hakon the Good came into Norway and tried to convert everybody to Christmas, he made it so that Christmas was going to be celebrated at the exact same time as Yule, and there would be no sacrifices. He was off put by all that. So no sacrifices on Christmas. Everybody has to celebrate on the same day. It could be Yule, it could be Christmas, but it's going to be on this day, and everybody's going to call it Yule. So that's how he was going to combine all of this. Then following that, the society ended up celebrating Yule on Christmas Day as well. So it kind of merged in this evolutionary pattern where you now have Yule on Christmas, but it's not Christmas. So everybody in Sweden will wish you a good Yule, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's Christmas. It doesn't necessarily mean it's the pagan Yule. It could be either or. Everybody just kind of has their own traditions based around it.
Well, that's nice because then you've got a catch-all phrase for whatever, anyone's celebrating, just happy Yule. And everyone's like, will do.
Yeah. I like that. I actually was just thinking how pleasant that is because I've definitely said happy holidays before and had people be fucking offended. And I was like, just calm down. I'm just wishing you whatever holiday you celebrate, have a good one. Just whatever it may be, enjoy it. Jesus. Yeah. Sorry. That's really cool. That sounds extremely pleasant.
Yeah, I was really excited about that for a while. One of the hardest things about being part of this community are you find a lot of sticklers who either want to be only old ways or only new age or some other pocket somewhere. But nobody really understands that there's an entire country who bases this stuff on their culture. So I get really frustrated myself being from that area, or at least my heritage being from that area. And this is literally my life. It's been my life since I was a child. My mom raised me this way. I actually have aunts and uncles who still live in Sweden and Denmark, and they say that me and my mom are more Swedish than they are. Yeah, our traditions are very much ancestral. It's very much how they are. So when I got really into Norse paganism and people are saying, no, it's this way because that's what we have in the manuscripts, and other people saying, no, it's this way because this is the way that the Asatru do things. And I'm sitting here going, guys, there's an evolution. It's cultural now. Don't tell me I'm wrong. I can prove it.
I've done the research.
Yeah, exactly. I've done the research. It might not be your pocketed research. It doesn't need to be in a manuscript. These are traditions that have been passed down for centuries, for thousands of years. Just because it's not in a Codex Regius or something doesn't necessarily mean it's false.
Right. I mean, that's the thing about, looking into any sort of pagan earth-based holiday or tradition. It's like these were oral traditions for, how long? It was so long before someone sat down and wrote it down, And so it's like we don't have these manuscripts that tell you exactly how it was done, It's like everyone has been doing their research for many years and finding different things. And yeah, I mean, that's definitely what we've been experiencing researching just these episodes. It's like, okay, there's a lot of different answers for why we do this one thing, and they're all valid. They all come from different places and different traditions and different books and different people's, stories, family histories and whatnot.
Yeah, exactly. And, sometimes you kind of have to jump out of that one little pocket of research and jump into another one. Like, how far back does the Swedish history texts go? It doesn't necessarily have to be heathen or pagan if you're going to figure out where these traditions came from. So there's tons of studies out there. You can either ask me questions, and I'll probably spend a week or two doing the research before I post up a little 3 to 6 minute read on my blog site, or dive into the academia.edu. Try to, if there's anything that's in a different language, try to Google Translate it. I've had to literally type out studies from their language to translate it at times just to figure it all out, and I have to hope that it's relevant information. Other times I ask my aunts and uncles, where can I find this information? I don't want to be ignorant. I want to find it. You went through the educational system there. What do you know?
Yeah. That's an amazing resource. That's really cool.
I was just thinking.
Thanks.
So then, what do you and your family do for this time of year for Yule? What are your traditions and celebrations look like?
Okay, so personally, I try to incorporate more pagan practices into my home than what I had as a child. Again, my mom was a little bit more timid when it came to celebrating Christmas. My dad was very Roman Catholic, so yeah. So she was trying to dip her toes in the water whenever she could, and it would be in the tiniest little ways. Thankfully, my mom says she had one time a year where she could be totally Swedish. This was her tradition, and she wasn't going to let anybody interfere with it. Of course, she was going to tweak a little some things so that my dad or his family weren't going to be weird about it.
Yeah. Not going to put her on the stake.
Yeah, exactly. For when it comes to my home, I do make it a little bit more Norse pagan, which is only just like little details here and there. Thankfully, my mom preserved a lot of it. So, as soon as Thanksgiving and Remembrance Day is over for us in Canada, my tree is up and my home is decorated with tomtas everywhere. I'm obsessed with tomtas.
That's so cute.
So I do play a lot of non-religious Yule music. Some of it is Swedish. I actually was part of a Swedish choir at one point in my life while I was trying to learn the language. So I understand some of it now. But the music's on in the background. It makes me feel really good because my mom would always have the Swedish Yule music playing at home as well. So immediately music's on and I want to bake the traditional Swedish treats. Traditional Swedish treats. So this year I'm actually going on a little adventure. I've been baking cookies with my little 2-year-old on the counter with me.
Fun.
It takes a while. There's a lot of squishing involved. But it's a part of it. I don't think Christmas, Yule, any of it, I don't think any of it would be so special if you didn't have kids to try to get involved in it all.
Yeah.
So, old mother. Sorry, where am I going with this? I get distracted when I talk about it.
Oh no, it's cool. We were just talking about, or we had asked the question, what your practices are. That's where the cookies came in.
Yes. So starting from the top, we get our tree. We have our tree up and it's decorated. Right now, there's actually no dried fruit on it, which is weird, but you usually have little dried oranges on it. You could string up some popcorn, put it up on the tree, or decorate it with some straw goats or shapes. You make the traditional Swedish cookies. So we have pepparkaka and kanelbullar, and then for December 24th, I'd spent an entire day in the kitchen making a big feast, which is full of either boar or ham, depending on what I can find when and where, with sides of traditional fishy appetizers and dishes. I'd have Swedish meatballs, breads and cheeses, apple juice for my son, but glöggen mead for the adults.
Ooh.
So we set up an extra plate for our ancestors because ancestors are a big part in most heathen or Norse pagan practices. We toast in their memory, and we open family gifts the night of December 24th. At night, we lay out oatmeal for the tomtas, and we leave our shoes outside for Frau Hol, who I base my book off of. So in the morning, we go full German. My husband is German, so we make sure December 24th is the Swedish traditions, and then December 25th is all the German traditions. We bring the shoes inside to see what Frau Hol put in, and then my husband bakes German pancakes for breakfast and some traditional German desserts for later.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's so
Can
good.
I come? I'm gonna come to your house.
You can. It's
German?
honestly so good.
They're my
Say that
favorite
again, Jess?
breakfast. German pancake breakfast every day.
They're honestly so good, and the syrup that you pour on top of them, I can't even explain the feeling that happens when I eat these. And we reserve them for once a year because they are definitely not diet friendly. But they're so good. They are baked in the oven, and they end up being, I don't know, like 2-3 inches high in different levels. It's fluffy. I don't even know exactly how to explain it. It's not really a pancake, but it's not anything else I've ever had before.
Huh.
And then
Yeah.
as soon as the German pancake syrup goes on top, which is also handmade on the stovetop, yeah, it's so good. But yeah, from there we just spend the whole entire day getting familiar with their gifts, eating leftovers, and calling our family who can be with us. But in general, I'd say it's pretty normal. You eat, you have gifts, you have your magical deity who comes in and leaves gifts for you.
I love that.
Yeah.
That sounds like such a quaint holiday. Like I'm just picturing. I'm sure you don't live like in a fucking log cabin, but it gives me those feels, like that, like, ooh, the snowy cabin and putting your little shoes out. I love that. That is so cool.
It's so hard when I want to take like little Christmas pictures or make everything picture perfect because I live in a very modern house. Everything looks new age, and all I want is for that cabiny look because that's how I feel. It's the feeling I want to encompass in all of this stuff, but it's still really warm. Like internally, I'm in that log cabin.
Yeah, your soul is in the log cabin.
Yeah, exactly.
So then I want to ask, you mentioned that your husband's German, but what is his spiritual belief or religious background?
He doesn't have any. He's really interested in Norse paganism, but he's not pagan at all. He's rather agnostic over everything, but he's very supportive over me. We follow along with the legends and the folk tales because it's cultural, and he just kind of lets me have my way, and we keep things traditional at home.
Nice. That sounds like a good. That's a good relationship. Good little compromise there. I like that he's agnostic, as opposed to like atheistic, right? Which is fine. Anyone listening, if that's what you are, but it makes it easier, I'm sure, for you to do what you do, to have a partner that's like, okay, cool, sure.
Yeah, he's actually one of the people who opened up the door for me anyways. When we first met, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, he was interested in this stuff, and we had hours and hours of conversations, and he thought it was really cool. He said it reminds him of what his grandparents do, and yeah, he was just totally open to it. I mean, at first I'm pretty sure he thought I was a witch, but that's okay.
That's fine. I got magical powers. Don't cross me.
He just liked the idea of being able to sit on the porch telling people not to trespass because his wife's a witch.
Yeah,
Totally valid.
Yeah, my husband loves doing that. He'll just be like, don't fuck with me, my wife's a witch.
Right.
I'm like, I don't know how that protects you, but that's okay.
Just roll with it. Just roll with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just like, yeah, I'm scary. Ooh.
This episode of the Power Through podcast has been brought to you by BetterHelp.com. BetterHelp is an online platform with licensed therapists who are ready to help you wherever you might exist across the multiverse. Now, you must be 18 years or older to use this service, and BetterHelp is not a crisis line, but you can start communicating with someone within 24 hours. They have financial aid available to qualifying individuals. This is a secure, convenient, and affordable platform for your counseling services. Use the URL betterhelp.com/witchy to get your first week free.
This episode is brought to you by Let's Get Checked at-home health testing system. Let's Get Checked is all about personal health testing, making healthcare and health screening open and patient-led, empowering people to use technology in a simple but powerful way, and giving greater control to their personal health. They have a range of tests, including STD testing across all genders, fertility tests, celiac tests, general wellness, and more. Use the code WITCHY on letsgetchecked.com at checkout for 20% off your purchase.
So I want to know more about your book. I want to know more about Mother Frost. Like, when did you come up with the idea to do this? What was the reason? And what has the process been like?
Okay, so it sounds corny, but my son was my inspiration. He was only about 8 months old when I started writing Old Mother Frost. I never thought I would end up writing a book, but I couldn't find any of those warm and magical children's books based on the Norse origins of the holidays, so I needed it, so I made it. As Norse pagan parents, we tend to worry. I worry that maybe he won't care about the holidays of his heritage, or maybe he will grow up resenting me for being different from his friends. I worried that maybe he will grow up jealous of how Christmas has all the cozy and magical stories, and I worried that maybe he will be maybe he'll completely accept our Yule but be bullied at school for it. So if I was going to make a children's book, I was going to follow a specific idea in my mind on what my favorite Christmas books were. I was going to fill it with research. I was going to highlight all the similarities of the holidays that were originally pagan, and I was going to base it on the pre-Christian goddess, so my son would have all the information he needed to be connected, justified, and festive. So that seems a lot. My book does not seem that heavy. So I ended up doing a month of research into the academic papers and studies, and then I spent the remainder of my year-long maternity leave refining the manuscript in a way that makes children see it as nothing but a favorite little holiday book that they'd want to read in their pajamas, cradled in the arms of their parents, drinking hot chocolate by the fire. So I also included a little bonus fun fact page at the end just so kids can have that aha moment. So it highlights the historical importance of what's found in the story. I thought this would be something fun for the parents, but it turns out that kids are really loving it too. So I'm absolutely ecstatic about the stories parents are sending me. It's so much more well received than I could have imagined, and I really hope that my little Ragnar enjoys it as much next year when he's old enough to understand what's going on.
You named him Ragnar?
Yes, that is
That's
ancestral.
so beautiful. I love that. That's so adorable.
Yeah, it's one of the ancestral names. It's actually been passed down at least 5 generations in my family.
Wow.
So it was my husband's idea, but he thought it would be really stupid because Vikings had just come out and it was a big name. And I had told him, I said, well, actually, Ragnar runs in my family. And he's like, oh my God, that's so awesome. If we have a kid together, his name's going to be Ragnar. We were only together for 3 months at this time, but it was solidified.
He'd already envisioned your guys' whole life at this point. He's like, oh my God. He saw the cozy log cabin too. He was like, my soul lives here with my son Ragnar and my witch wife.
Exactly. That's exactly how it all started.
That's adorable. I love that.
Yeah.
Aww. Yeah, I gave my kids all Celtic names too.
Hell yeah.
Ryan, Rory, and Rowan.
That's amazing. I'm not pregnant. I'm hoping to have another kid in the future, but it's really hard to try to figure out a name to follow up with Ragnar. Like, I really hope it's a girl because a boy's name to follow up with this is going to be really hard.
True, yeah. It's going to take some, you got to live up to the same level of name for sure.
Yeah, right.
You can't name one Ragnar and the other one Jake.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that is funny. Imagining having a second child just being like, I don't know, we'll just name him Jake.
These are my sons, Ragnar and Jake.
Yeah. We were thinking about maybe an Eric, but I mean, there's a lot of badass Erics in Norse mythology, the kings, everything, but it's so mainstream these days that it's almost like naming your kid Jake. Like, as far as sibling rivalry goes, you're like, are you kidding me? I was many kings. I wasn't just a king. I wasn't just a legend. I was tons of legends, but you're still Eric.
You could name your second son Uhtred.
We've been thinking about a few different ones. My husband suggested Sigurd, and I said no. I suggested Gunnar. He doesn't like it. We both like Bjorn, but then that's really weird when it comes to the whole Viking TV series. So I wouldn't mind having a little bear though.
That is very cute. What are some potential girl names?
I think we finally settled on Helena Hannette Hartman.
Cute.
That's adorable.
I love that name.
And there's a bunch of goddesses whose English names end up being Helena or Helena, and my son's grandmother's middle name is Helena. So altogether, it actually goes well. And then my middle name is Hannette, and my mother's maiden name is Hannette. So putting it all together, we've got Triple H.
Nice. I like that. That's cute.
Yeah. So, do you have any plans to continue writing pagan children's books?
Yes. So, my problem with continuing all of this was I got wrapped up in the community really quickly. I made an Austria manuscript, but then I decided that I wasn't going to pursue the New Age pagan stuff or the Wheel of the Year. Maybe I was going to focus on the historical heathen ways, because then that would just be a 3 to 4 book series. And then I remembered why I started, and it was because I wanted my son to feel connected to his heritage. So I'm focusing on Norse mythology, or at least the pre-Christian legends behind different events. And I wanted him to know the holidays and festivals and celebrations that I grew up with. So I'm already working on a MidSummer book that's based off of the goddess Sol. So that's actually going through with the editor now. And hopefully I'll have that up super early because I'm having some shipping issues right now. So I'm hoping to have that ready come March. And then I'm going to order everything over to my house and ship it out from here so I can make sure everybody has their books within a week or two after ordering.
That's awesome. I love
Yeah.
that. I'm really excited because yeah, I've definitely done the search where I'm like, okay, let's find some good Pagan Kids books, and I'm like, okay, like there's one Christmas one by Jan Brett. I forget what it's called now, but it's like about Christmas elves. It's actually a really cute story. I like it, but I'm like, okay, there's one.
Yeah,
Let's have more.
it's frustrating, and I was trying to come up with different books that I've read for the Norse pagan Yule,
Mhm.
for heathen Yule, or just anything from Scandinavia about the celebrations, and there's nothing. And I was reminded exactly how real that is yesterday when I was trying to look into books to recommend. So thankfully, there's a bunch of winter solstice books that can get you into it. There's little stories about trolls that help Santa, but there's nothing that avoids Christmas entirely. And
Mm.
we need that. And then I remembered exactly how frustrated I was when I learned this the first time. And yeah, I even tried to find these books in Sweden or Germany. I didn't even care if it wasn't in English anymore, and I couldn't find anything for children.
Wow.
Yeah, so I was forced
Huh.
to do it myself, and originally it was supposed to be just a little amateur book I was going to have for my son, but then I was worried he wasn't going to feel like it was a legitimate book. So I went ahead and I hired a really good illustrator. And from that, I was embarrassed to tell my husband how much that cost, especially because I was on maternity leave. So I had to try to take it as far as I could, which ended up making everything real.
Mm-hmm.
So it just kind of snowballed really quickly. Like I was fated to be exactly where I am. Everything started, I got the inspiration, I felt a little embarrassed, which it made me launch it sky high. So now we've got Pagan Kids, we've got a book, we've got another book on the way, and I don't know if I'm going to stop writing now. So I don't know if maybe
Good.
I'll start with all of the celebrations that I know of in Sweden, which isn't much, but then I might carry forward into the German world. Maybe I do really want to do a Wheel of the Year series,
Fuck yeah.
but not the way that they're done right now. It's hard to explain.
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely like variations to it. Like there's that like it's not only Wiccan based, but yeah, there's like this Wheel of the Year that's kind of like mainstream pagan. I guess that's kind of a contradiction, but you know what I mean. Like
Yeah,
like
yeah,
in the
it's
pagan
New
communities, we're all kind of like,
Age.
okay, Yule, Samhain, Litha, like yada da da da, like all the holidays. So I'm actually really I think that's really cool because yeah, pagans don't just celebrate Yule, and we don't just celebrate Samhain, and we don't just celebrate Ostara. We have holidays all year, man,
Yeah,
all year.
exactly. I think one of the best parts about the books is the little fun facts at the end because I can
Hmm.
help. It's what I do with my blogs. It's like, oh, okay, so Samhain has come up. This is awesome. This is what it's about. This is what the historical heathen celebrated at this time. And this is how everybody can celebrate it right now. So it kind of shows the New Age Norse pagans that, okay, so you're following the Wheel of the Year. This is New Age. It's based off the Wiccan Wheel of the Year. You can celebrate that too. That's awesome. This is what you can do. This is the historical way you can celebrate it, and this is what I've incorporated into the celebration as well. So in the end, everybody ends up having a well-rounded version of the celebration.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful. I think that's a great addition to the books, having those little facts at the end so that, you're not only getting like a cute story that, I mean, cute puts it, I mean, it is, it's for kids, but, it's like, it isn't just a cute story. Like it is also to educate and bring awareness and to, it's more or less what you've been saying. And this is what you've been wanting for your son. So he doesn't feel weird and strange and different, so he can have these things to hold on to, and this normalcy to what you guys celebrate and what he's raised into. And I think there's a lot of moms around the world right now who want a similar thing. And I think it's also just nice to take at least some focus off of these like very mainstream modern holidays that we all celebrate, and just kind of like take it out a little bit and show like, okay, but also here's where it comes from, or here's something that's adjacent to it that was celebrated around the same time and you can learn about it, and just helping to not have this compulsory holiday experience, for all of the main holidays. It's like very compulsory, especially, being Americans. We just have these holidays that you just boom, 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 you celebrate. You don't ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
You just do it because they've been doing it for so long now. So it's nice to have this, hopefully slowly pick up momentum so that other people can be introduced to it. And, even if people still want to celebrate the more compulsory holidays, it's like, well, all the other ones are valid too, everything else that people are celebrating, and everything else that people do around these times when we all tend to celebrate in some way, shape, or form. There's other ways to do it, and they're valid and they're cool, and we can introduce them to our kids. So that's, I love it. I'm so stoked for you to continue this journey.
I think one of the things I have to make sure of, just because I named my son Ragnar, is I want to make him feel justified, because he's already going to be out there with a super different name. He's already going to be celebrating Yule instead of anything else that's more popularized out there. Whenever we do something, I want him to be educated about it. I want him to come up with a story right away. I don't want him to choke on what his family does because he doesn't know how to answer it. And that's one of the things that I ended up having to go through when I started on all of this, was how do I explain this to people? How do I really explain that my traditions are different, and why, when they're almost very similar,
Absolutely. Yeah. So where can people find your book?
So you can actually find all of the shop links on my website at pagankids.org. You can also find more information about it on my Facebook and Instagram accounts. And if you really don't want to get onto a website, you can also search Old Mother Frost by Jennifer Hartman on Google. You'll come up with a bunch of results, but it's also available on Amazon.
Cool. I'm excited. I'm definitely going to scoop a copy. And the MidSummer one when it comes out.
I am so excited about that one. I originally started making it rhyme and realized that I didn't want to do that. So now it's going to be all in prose. And I think it's going to be a really unique concept. I think we need it, especially after last summer when Hollywood pushed out that horror movie about MidSummer. Because nobody knows about the actual MidSummer. It's not terrifying.
This is why I love you and your account.
That's what I was thinking when you said the next book was going to be MidSummer. I was like, thank goodness, because raising your children to celebrate MidSummer, and then, imagining them going to school and someone mocking them like, oh, did you push your grandpa off a rock? Like MidSummer, it played such a horrible picture. I mean, like, it is aesthetically a beautiful movie, and I understand people who aren't within, who don't celebrate pagan holidays get something from MidSummer, but as, someone who's within this community, it was just kind of, I watched it, but
I have not.
I was just like, it was like, great. We just need another, film to kind of push this narrative that we're all these like murderous, evil people. Like, okay, cool, tight. So I think having a book, within your series about MidSummer is going to be so wonderful and so beneficial.
Yeah, my husband's in the Army, so we move all across the country. I'm hoping by next summer I'll be in an English-speaking province, so I can actually have my own MidSummer, like have an event, work with a property somewhere, maybe a farm, hoist up a mast, and just have a proper MidSummer day. So the thing about the MidSummer movie is it does follow the outline of what MidSummer is, but they make it super dark, they make it scary, and it's not at all what it is. MidSummer is just supposed to be this fun, happy, festive summer thing. You dance around in circles, you wear flower crowns, you watch kids sing silly little songs and make funny noises. It's honestly just light, it's cheerful, it's jumpy. There's nothing dark about it. Nothing. So I'm really hoping this changes the narrative.
Yeah.
In the movie, didn't things get really dark because of their shroom trip? Mostly.
No. No, they stumble upon it like it's a cult. I don't know which country they're in, but it's a Scandinavian country, and it's essentially a cult, and everything that they do is like Jennifer was saying, like one scene they're all supposed to be going around and dancing, and the last one standing is like the MidSummer queen, and she decides at the end who to sacrifice, and like there are other people who volunteer being sacrificed, and it's like it's very gruesome. Yeah.
It probably follows along the old heathen ways, to be honest, but it wouldn't have been considered dark and evil. And way, way back then, people barely even lived till the age of 30 because of the harsh climate. Mm-hmm. So there is a MidSummer queen. The last person dancing is crowned the MidSummer queen, but she's not going to sacrifice anybody.
Not these days, anyway.
Not these days.
Only in Hollywood. Well, awesome. So is there anywhere else that people can find you aside from your website or your Instagram? Is there anything else you want to plug or tell our listeners?
That's about it. I do have a Patreon for anybody who wants to kind of support me in any way. I'm doing this full time now, so any contributions would be amazing. But other than that, I do mostly rely on my book sales to help fund the next book. So
okay.
That's
go out and buy this book.
Buy my book, yeah.
Cool.
Well, awesome. Thank you so much for being our guest interview episode today. It was wonderful to have you on and hear all this good information. It was a great way to wrap up these past 4 episodes or past 3 episodes. You guys know where to find us, but if you don't, I'll tell you. You can find us on Instagram at Power of 3 Podcast. You can email us any questions at powerof3witchpodcast@gmail.com. We have a Patreon as well. We have a Facebook group. But yeah, Instagram is the best way to interact and connect with us. Make sure to rate, review, subscribe, follow Jennifer at Pagan Kids, and we will catch you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Goodbye.
This Power of 3 episode has been brought to you by Tonic Vibe CBD products. Tonic's original CBD blends are handcrafted in small batches with purposeful plant-based ingredients. Using herbs like ashwagandha and superfoods like black seed oil, Tonic elevates the benefits of CBD to create a powerful way to heal the body, calm the mind, and restore balance. Their hemp-derived CBD and botanical blends create a completely holistic method to help you feel your best and #FixYourVibe. Use code WITCHY at tonicvibes.com for 10% off your order.
This episode of the Power of 3 podcast is brought to you by Shock Rubs, because sex is magic. Shock Rubs is the first crystal sex toy company. Their sex toys are made from natural crystals that bring a sense of sacredness to your playtime. These beautiful handcrafted tools are created with the intention of opening oneself up to the healing properties that crystals provide. All toys are body safe, made from the earth and provided with love. They create harmony in mind, body, and spirit, remove blocks caused by sexual trauma, create deeper intimacy with the self and with your partner, and even encourage self-awareness and mindfulness. So use the code WitchyWisdom on shockgrabs.com at checkout for 10% off your purchase today.